Ito ang 106.3 Dance Radio. Dance Radio.
Prepare yourself.
Ang silid-aralan sa radyo, hatid namin ay makabagong paraan ng pagtuturo at kaalaman. Mapaumaga, tanghali o hapon man yan, ang istasyong magbibigay impormasyon kahit saan man.
For something big. Alright, here we go.
106.3 Dance Radio. Doña Aurora National High School, Santa Rita, Aurora, Isabela.
This
106.3 DWDR-FM. TLE, Technology and Livelihood Education. TLE, Learning Area, Automotive Servicing, Beauty Care, Electronics Product Assembly and Servicing, Cookery, Electrical Installation and Maintenance, Dressmaking, Computer System Servicing, mga leksyong pangkabuhayan, edukasyong teknolohikal, mapapakinggan. Dito lang yan sa 106.3 Dance Radio. TLE, Learn and Earn.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Usapang TLE. This week is our week 4, quarter 3, shift 1. We would like to greet our Fatherly Chief Education Supervisor, Officer in Charge, Sir Rodrigo V. Pascua. Good morning po, sir. To all our learners, listeners over the radio, and also our viewers in our Facebook page and in our YouTube channel. So, my companions for this morning are Ma'am Marilyn, Ma'am Dandit, and Sir Edwin. Siyempre, kasama rin natin dito si Ma'am Maylin, dyan lang sa side. Hello, Ma'am Maylin. Marilyn.
Hello to all the department heads of the different learning areas, most especially to our head teacher, Sir Jeff. Shout out ko nga ang aking mga estudyante, may 7 Aguinaldo, that's why ayaw ipaano ni Sir yung kanyang pelyedo. and of course, my 7 Bonifacio, my 8 Beach, Virgin D and Cyan, and of course, my 9 Makopa and 9 Dressmaking. Hello, hello everyone!
We would like also to say hello to the supportive parents and guardians of our students. And to all our listeners and viewers, we hope you are all doing fine today. And shout out ko din ang 7 Del Pilar, Jacinto and Lapu-Lapu, 8 Crimson, 10 Cookery, composed of Almasiga, Camagong, Lawan, Tanggile, and Diakal. And of course, baka makalimutan ko ang aking advisory class, ang 10 Tanggile. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning also to all teachers here in Santa Rita and San Juan campus. Shout out po sa lahat ng mga estudyante natin, sa mga estudyanteng grade 9, major in EPAS o kaya Electronic Product Assembly and Servicing. Ito yung pag-usapan natin ngayon. Kaya specialization na pag-usapan natin ngayong araw na ito. Sa Ma'am Malve.
Yes, so shout out din sa aking Beauty Care 9B and Cookery 9D. Hello, hello. Ma'am Marilyn, ano ba ang objectives natin ngayong araw na ito?
Yes, we are guided with these different objectives for today. So we're going to discuss about define tests as used in assembling and troubleshooting electronic devices. Second, enumerate the steps in testing individual electronic components. Third, explain the procedure on how to test electronic components and give the importance of testing components.
So to our dear grade 9 learners specializing in electronic product assembly and servicing, I know that you are now ready and excited. Dear learners, make sure that you are in your comfortable place and prepare all the needed materials, just like your pen, paper, and learning activity sheets are last titled Test Components.
That's right, Ma'am Dandit. I believe not only the grade 9 learners are excited today, but also to all our listeners and viewers who are tuned in to our Dance Radio 106.3 FM, sa ating FB page and sa YouTube channel.
So our dear learners, listeners, and viewers, you may participate later on sa ating question and answer portion because prizes are at stake. So, our mechanics in answering the questions are, use the hashtag Usapang TLE together with your grade and section, the item number, and your answer in the comment box. Or pwede rin kayong mag-send ng inyong sagot sa ating cellphone number 0975-1992-630. So, hihintayin namin dyan. But we still need to listen first to our RBI lesson titled Testing Electronic Components. Stay tuned!
Wala nang makakapigil pa. Sulong Arangkada 106.3 Dance Radio sa Aurora, Isabela.
Edukasyo'y susulong, basta na magtulong-tulong. Sulong edukalidad, Dance Radio.
TLE, Technology and Livelihood Education.
TLE Learning Area.
TLE Learning Area.
Automotive Servicing.
Beauty Care.
Electronic Products Assembly and Servicing.
Cookery.
Electrical Installation and Maintenance.
Dressmaking.
Computer System Servicing.
Mga leksyong pangkabuhayan. Edukasyong teknolohikal.
Matutunghayan dito sa
106.3
Dance Radio. TLE Learning Area.
Technology and Livelihood Education.
Learn and earn.
Good day, everyone. I am glad to be with you in this 30-minute broadcast. Please get your writing materials and learning activity sheets for Quarter 3, Week 4, so we can start our lesson in Electronic Products Assembly and Servicing 9. The learning activity sheets provide you different activities that will help you become familiar with the topics or lessons about testing electronic components. Assistance of your parents, siblings, or relatives are encouraged in answering the learning activity sheets, particularly in the activities where you need to perform tasks. Are you ready?
Yes, sir!
Before we begin, let's have a review of our past lesson. What was our previous lesson all about?
Our last lesson was about criteria, methods, and strategies in testing electronic components, sir.
That's right! You have a sharp memory. What have you learned for that particular lesson?
Sir, I learned that in testing electronic components, we need to consider their functionality, compatibility, performance, usability, automation, and competitive analysis.
Exactly! It is very important to know the functionality, compatibility, performance, usability, automation, and competitive analysis of each component to be tested. What else have you learned from our previous lesson?
Sir, I learned the different methods of testing electronic components.
Very good! What are the different methods of testing electronic components then?
Sir, there are 3 methods of testing electronic components. 1 is the continuity test, 2, the resistance test, and 3, the common test, which is the voltage test.
Very well said, dear learner. Do you remember the difference among those 3 methods?
Yes, sir. The continuity test measures if electricity can flow through the wire. When performing continuity test, plug the 2 probes into the multimeter and set the dial to continuity. Place the red and black probes on either side of the wire. The pointer will deflect and rest to approximately 0. This means that electricity can flow through the wire or conductor.
Sir, the resistance test measures how much current is lost as electricity flows through a component or circuit. It's measured in ohms, and it is slightly more complicated to test than continuity. Whereas continuity works on a range of 0 to 1. Resistance can come in different strengths, so you need to know how much resistance a given part should have.
Last but not the least is the voltage test, sir. The voltage or the force of the electric pressure determines whether the appliance is DC or direct current or AC or alternating current. Checking voltage can be very dangerous. Be sure to get the proper training before attempting. Just like with resistance testing, manually set the expected voltage range and make sure that the multimeter can handle the maximum expected voltage. Some components can be electrically okay, but the voltage check can ensure it is mechanically okay.
Wow! You are all correct! You have a great memory about our Quarter 3, Week 3 lessons, and it seems that you have learned a lot. I know you are now ready for our lesson for Quarter 3, Week 4. Here are the objectives for today's lesson. First, define test as used in assembling and troubleshooting electronic devices. Second, enumerate the steps in testing individual electronic components. Third, explain the procedure on how to test electronic components. And fourth, give the importance of testing components. Are you ready?
Yes, sir!
Good luck! Do you have your own electrical or electronic appliances or gadgets at home?
Yes, sir!
Who can give examples of electrical or electronic appliances or gadgets?
Electric fan and washing machine, sir.
Sir, cell phone and television.
That's nice to hear. Now, let us study the situation. After a long, hard day, you finally sit down to catch up on your favorite show. But when you hit the power button of your remote control, your TV did not power on. What will you do?
Sir, I will check the batteries of the remote control. It may not be installed properly or our remote control batteries need to be replaced.
Sir, I will check the connection of the unit.
Absolutely. What if your unit is still dead?
Sir, tap the unit for possible loose connection.
Sir, unplug the TV from the wall, wait for at least 30 seconds, and plug the TV back into a working outlet to test it again.
You are all correct. What do you think is the best way to do to fix your unit?
Sir, call a skilled or experienced electronic technician to do the job.
Exactly. Contact an electronic technician if your unit still doesn't turn on. Don't attempt to access the inside components of the unit unless you are trained on how to do so. But since you are students specializing in electronic products assembly and servicing, you must know how to test components for you to be able to troubleshoot defects of appliances to save money. In addition, knowing how to test components and fix appliances serve as a source of income. I know you are already excited for our lesson today. It is about testing electronic components.
Yes, we are, sir.
It's nice to hear that. So, let's get started by defining the terms for you to understand better our lesson. What is meant by test?
Sir, test is a sequence of operations intended to verify the correct operation or malfunctioning of a piece of equipment or system. It may also be defined as a method of judging whether an electronic component is good or defective.
You are right. Testing is done by following the steps to determine the condition, if it is good or bad, of each component used in assembling or repairing any electronic products. Will you cite examples of electronic components that need to be tested?
Sir, resistor, capacitor, transistor, diode, transformer are some examples of electronic components that need to be tested.
Precisely. In testing these components, we use the ohmmeter instrument. For some, the result in each test may be low or high resistance, while other parts are not. What is the difference between low resistance and high resistance?
Low resistance in the electronic testing industry refers to any resistance values below 1 ohm, while high resistance is a resistance higher than 1 kilo ohm, sir.
You said it right. To easily determine low and high resistances in testing electronic components like diode or transistor, use ranges RX1 or RX10. If the pointer moves, the resistance is low. And if the pointer does not move, the resistance is high, or we can call it as infinite reading. I hope you understood the difference between low resistance and high resistance.
Yes, sir!
Great! Now, let us test some electronic components commonly used in our appliances. Let us start with the diode. Read step number 1.
Sir, keep the multimeter selector switch in low resistance value.
That's right! Why do you use only the low resistance range?
Sir, we use the low resistance range because in this mode, the multimeter is capable to supply a current of approximately 2 milliamperes between the test leads.
You are right! Remember also not to touch the tip of the two probes by the finger when measuring resistance. Why should we not touch the tips of the two probes?
This is because the diodes only conduct in one direction. Leakage path through fingers can alter readings in some cases, sir.
That is correct. Diode is a two-terminal semiconductor device that allows current to flow only in one direction. How about step number 2?
Connect the diode in the forward biased connection, sir.
What do we mean by forward bias?
Sir, Forward biased is the condition when the positive terminal of the multimeter is connected to anode, which is the positive element of the diode, and the negative terminal of the multimeter is connected to the cathode, which is the negative element of the diode.
Impressive answer! Positive and negative terminals we are referring to here make up the internal voltage from the battery inside the multimeter that exists in the test probes. We cannot determine the condition of a diode without applying a small amount of voltage. What about the third step?
Sir, after connecting the probes to the elements of the diode, if the meter indicates a low resistance value, then the diode is healthy.
Very good! Why is the test result to low resistance and diode under test healthy?
Sir, the result to low resistance and diode under test is healthy because connecting a positive voltage to the anode and a negative voltage to the cathode across the diode causes the decreasing of width of the junction inside the diode, making the diode to conduct current.
Fantastic! This time, let's talk about reverse bias connection. What is it?
In the reverse biased connection, applying DC voltage to the electrodes of the diode, negative to the anode and positive to the cathode, causes the attraction. In this operation, the diode is not conducting because of the polarity applied to it, sir.
Very well said, my dear learner. You really can distinguish between forward and reverse bias operations. So, if the result of the test is low during forward bias or high in the reverse bias, then the diode is good. We will continue our discussion after this infomercial.
Nangangamba baka magka-COVID?
Huwag mag-alala. Narito ang mga tips upang makaiwas sa COVID-19.
Una, social distancing. Umiwas muna sa matataong lugar. Huwag lumabas ng bahay kung hindi naman kinakailangan. Kung may distansya, safe ka.
Ikalawa, panatilihing malinis ang katawan.
Ugaliin ang paghugas ng kamay.
Sabon at alkohol are real.
Palakasin ang katawan.
At vitamins ay huwag kalilimutan.
At ikatlo, laging magsuot ng face mask bilang proteksyon laban sa virus. Kung protektado, siguradong sa virus ay negatibo.
Mga kapatid, tips ay tandaan upang COVID-19 ay maiwasan.
Isang paalala mula sa Tonyong Aurora National High School at ng himpilang ito. Kayo nakikinig sa TLE Grade 9. Kasama si Teacher Michael John and Tumula.
I'm back! Let us continue. How do we test transistors? Is it still high and low resistance?
Sir, there are steps to follow in testing a transistor and you need to consider its base collector and emitter LEDs.
That is correct. How can you identify the base, collector,
and emitter LEDs of a transistor?
1. Determine which LEDs are the base, emitter, and collector, sir. In plastic casing, one side of the transistor is flat, which the front side and the pins are arranged serially. To identify the pins, keep the front flat side facing you and count the pins as 1, 2, and 3. In most NPN transistor, it will be 1 or the collector, 2 or the base, 3 or the emitter, thus CBE. They may be labeled on some transistors, or you may be able to determine which LED is the base by studying the circuit diagram.
Impressive answer! Now that you know the base, collector,
and emitter LEDs of a transistor,
what should you do next?
Step number 2. Connect the black test probe to the base of the transistor, sir.
That's right! What should you do after that?
Sir, step 3. Touch the red probe to the emitter. Read the display on the multimeter and note whether the resistance is high or low.
Move the red probe to the collector. The display should give the same reading as when you touch the probe to the emitter. This is step number 4, sir.
Step 5, sir. Remove the black probe from the base and connect the red probe to the base. And for number 6, touch the black probe to the emitter and collector. Compare the reading on the multimeter's display to the readings you got previously.
Absolutely! If the readings in steps number 3 and 4 were both high and the current readings are both low, the transistor is good. If the readings in steps number 5 and 6 were both low and the current readings are both high, the transistor is good. If both readings you receive with the red probe are not the same, both readings with the black probe are not the same, or the readings don't change when switching probes, the transistor is bad. When you don't know the base, collector, and emitter among the 6 tests for good transistor, there must be 2 low and 4 high resistance. Otherwise, the transistor is bad. Let's proceed to our next component to be tested, which is the capacitor. Capacitors are voltage storage devices used in electronic circuits, such as those found in heating and air conditioning fan motors and compressors. To find out the condition of the capacitor, there are 4 steps to follow. Will you state step 1?
Sir, step 1. Disconnect the capacitor from its circuit.
That is correct. Why is it needed to disconnect the capacitor from the circuit?
Sir, it is very important to disconnect capacitor from its circuit because capacitors can hold the charge even if the power supply is disconnected. If the capacitor is not discharged properly and if you accidentally touch the LEDs of the capacitor, it will discharge through your body and cause an electric shock.
Fantastic! The voltage stored in the capacitor passes through your body and may cause an electric shock. What about step 2?
Step 2. Set your multimeter to its resistance setting. This setting may be marked with the word OHM, sir.
Yes, very good! If your multimeter has an adjustable resistance range, set the range to 1 kilo ohm or higher to monitor the charging and discharging ability of the capacitor. Now, tell me step 3.
Sir, connect the multimeter LEDs to the capacitor terminals and observe the results.
You are right! Analog multimeters use a needle to display their results. How the needle behaves determines whether or not the capacitor is good. What are the conditions so we can say that a capacitor is good or not?
If the needle initially shows a low resistance value, then gradually moves towards infinity, the capacitor is good, sir.
Sir, if the needle initially shows a low resistance value, then gradually moves but stops with a reading less than infinity and will never reach that level, the capacitor is leaky.
Sir, if the needle shows a low resistance value and doesn't move, the capacitor has been shorted out. You'll need to replace it.
If the needle shows no resistance value and doesn't move, or a high value and doesn't move, the capacitor is an open capacitor, sir.
You are all correct. I am really impressed with your answers. You did not only give the steps, but you also explained the test results to determine the condition of the capacitor, whether it is good, leaky, shorted, or open. We are done discussing our lesson. Prepare your learning activity sheets and we shall answer your activities after this short reminder.
Mga kaibigan, sa panahon ngayon, kailangang magpalakas ng katawan.
Kumain ng masustansyang pagkain at sabayan ng pag-eehersisyo.
Huwag ding kalimutan ang pag-inom ng vitamins. Resistensya ay palakasin. Kalusugay huwag pabayaan upang sakit ay maiwasan.
Isang paalala mula sa himpilang ito.
Kayo nakikinig sa TLE Grade 9. Kasama si Teacher Michael John and Tumula.
I'm back! Now, open your learning activity sheets on page 3. Activity 1 labeled True or False. Write true if the statement is correct and false if wrong. Write your answers on a separate sheet of paper. Number 1. The first step in testing diode is to set your multimeter to its resistance setting. What is your answer?
Sir, my answer is true.
Correct. Number 2. During a forward bias connection, resistance is low. What is your answer?
Sir, my answer is true.
Very good. Let's proceed with number 3. Base element of transistor can be determined in just one test. What is your answer?
Sir, my answer is false in at least 2 tests.
You are right. You may answer the rest of the activity after this broadcast. This time, let us read and answer activity number 2 labeled Tell Me. Directions. Identify the test result in each of the following tests. Write your answers on a separate sheet of paper. Number 1. Base collector test. Pointer does not move. What is your answer?
Sir, my answer is high resistance.
You are correct. Let's proceed with number 2. Positive to cathode and negative to anode. What is your answer?
Sir, my answer is high resistance. The connection is in reverse bias.
Very good. Let's jump to number 3. Positive to anode and negative to cathode. What is your answer?
Sir, my answer is low resistance. The connection is in forward bias.
Fantastic! You may answer the rest of the activity after this broadcast. Now, let us summarize our lesson. What have we discussed today?
Sir, we discussed the testing electronic components.
You are right. What else?
Sir, we also discussed the steps in testing different components used in electronic industry.
Very good. Are there some more that we have discussed?
Sir, the safety precautions when testing components and their test results to identify their conditions.
Precisely. My dear learners, always remember not to touch the tip of both test probes when using high ohmmeter ranges to avoid error in reading. You must also keep in mind that when testing high values of capacitor, always short the two terminals before you proceed. Remember the tagline, safety first. Is that clear, class?
Yes, sir!
Now, it is time to check your understanding of the lesson by answering the following questions. 1. Who can define test as used in assembling and troubleshooting electronic devices?
Sir, test is a sequence of operations intended to verify the correct operation or malfunctioning of a piece of equipment or system. It may also be defined as a method of judging whether an electronic component is good or defective.
Very good! Let's proceed to number 2. How can we identify if diode under test is good?
Sir, we can say that a diode is good when two conditions are met. In one test, there should be low resistance, and if you reverse the polarity in the other test, there should be high resistance.
You are right! Let's jump to number 3. How about the test results if the capacitor is shorted?
Sir, when the needle deflects to the right or low resistance and remains steady, the capacitor is said to be shorted. The insulator is defective and there is full contact between the plates, sir.
Wow! Impressive answers! For your last task, open your learning activity sheets on page 3. On the reflection part, please read and analyze the questions. Then, answer them based on your understanding. First, why is it important to test electronic components?
Sir, testing electronic components is an important stage when assembling or repairing electronic device. The reliability of a product is often highly dependent on whether the electronic components were properly tested. Electronics quality testing is essential for any produced product, especially if it contains complex circuits. Testing out a component provides early detection of any error or trouble and thoroughly evaluates the unit's performance to determine if it meets specification compliance.
Very good! Second, will the lesson help you in your daily lives? If yes, how? If no, why? Write your answers on a separate sheet of paper. You may accomplish all the tasks after this broadcast or during your most convenient time. Now, we're almost done. I hope you have learned a lot from our discussions. Get in touch with your subject teachers through their mobile phones or messenger chats if you have questions. On behalf of the production team, I would like to acknowledge the teachers behind this RBI lesson. Teacher Edwin L. Respicio, our script writer. Teacher Joy L. Madamba, our technical specialist. Teacher Annabel C. Acopido, our language editor. Teacher Florilyn D. Velasco and Teacher Jefferson F. Aguinaldo, head teacher of the TLE learning area, our content editors. And I am Teacher Michael Jan M. Tumulak, your radio teacher for this hour. Thank you very much and stay tuned for our live discussion.
Dance Radio, siniparalan sa radyo, hatid namin makabago, paraan ang pagtuturo.
Wala nang makakapigil pa. Sulong Arangkada 106.3 Dance Radio sa Aurora, Isabela.
Edukasyo'y susulong, basta na magtulong-tulong.
And we're back, dear learners, viewers, and listeners. You've just finished listening to our Grade 9 RBI titled Testing Electronic Components. We hope you've learned a lot. And if there are things that bother you about our topic, don't you worry, because we will answer and solve all your questions and worries in our live discussion. So please accompany us till the very end.
Our dear learners listening and participating in our live discussion here at Usapang TLE will enhance your knowledge, especially to our lesson for today. Let's refresh your mind about our previous lesson titled Criteria, Methods, and Strategies in Testing Electronic Components with the following questions. Okay, so mayroon tayong mga katanungan dito mga anak. And don't forget the hashtag Usapang TLE, your grade and section, the item number, and your answer. Okay, for the question number 1. What are the 3 methods of testing electronic components? I repeat, what are the 3 methods of testing electronic components? A. Continuity test, pressure test, and resistance test. B. Continuity test, pressure test, and voltage test. C. Continuity test, resistance test, and voltage test. And letter D, pressure test, resistance test, and voltage test. Okay, so sino kaya ang mananalo sa question number 1 natin? Sino ang makakakuha ng tamang kasagutan? Meron na ba? Ayan, siguro nag-iisip pa sila. Ano kaya ang tamang sagot? Ma'am Marilyn, what do you think is the answer?
Ay, nako. Tinetest na pala yata ako dito. So, tingnan nga natin, ma'am and sir. Himayin nga natin, i-analyze nga natin itong mga choices. Bakit ba puro test ito? No? Pag sinabi natin continuity test o yung tuloy-tuloy o continuous, di ba applicable sa wire? Malalaman natin kung may putol o wala. Or, is it pressure test? Nape-pressure ka na ba dahil sa taas ng gas ngayon? May tubig ba yung tangke na ginagamit? O yung lakas ba ng sound galing sa speaker kaya ang tinutukoy ng pressure test na to? Resistance or resistance test. Parang sa tao lang na hindi basta-basta dinadapuan ng sakit kasi malakas ang resistensya. No? Dapat meron tayo yan ngayon. At last, yung voltage test. Yun kaya ang hinahanap natin. Hindi kasi gagana ang isang appliance o anumang appliance or gadget kung walang voltahe. No? Parang sa pag-ibig lang yan. Kung walang spark, walang voltahe, walang voltage. Okay? So, ano ba doon? No? Ano ba yung hinahanap natin? Is it continuity, pressure, resistance, or voltage? No? Pero ang sagot ko, ma'am, parang C.
Okay, so ang sagot daw ni Ma'am Marin ay letter C. Okay, take note mga anak ha. Kapag halimbawa sumagot yung kaklase ninyo at mali ang kanyang sagot, so wag natin silang tatawanan. Sabi nga nila, we need to respect each other. Ayan.
Meron ako nakikita, ma'am.
Umaya. Okay, meron na rin ako nakita na sagot.
Meron akong kaparehas ang sagot.
Okay, yes, halos sila.
Kung tutusin kasi ma'am, pag sinabi natin yung pressure test na yan, pag tumutunog na yung sound, hindi na natin dapat i-test. Doon pa lang sa pag-produce na ng sound, ibig sabihin good siya. Kaya sang-ayon ko ma'am doon sa sagot mo na C.
Okay, so sabi ni Sir Edwin, the correct answer is letter C. Kaya tama si Ma'am Marilyn. At sino ang nanalo, Ma'am Marilyn?
Ang nakikita ko dito ay si Ismael Pascual. Tama ba sa screen ninyo?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so 9 SPJ. Mantakin mo SPJ na yan, ha? Okay.
Okay, for number 2.
For number 2 question, ako naman magtatanong. Which of the following ranges of voltmeter is used when measuring unknown voltage? A. 50, B. 250, C. 500, or D. 1000? Which of the following ranges of a voltmeter is used when measuring unknown voltage? A. 50, B. 250, C. 500, or D. 1000? Sino kaya ang makakapag
Bigyan ng tamang kasagutan. Okay, pakibilisan mga anak.
No? Okay, meron ba? Meron naman ako nakita dito.
Ay, wala akong makita.
Unang niya, tignan lang
Puro
natin.
number 1 pa lang.
Ay, oo nga, number 1 pa lang yata yung panasagot niya.
So, bumagal, no?
Bumagal yung net natin kaya or yung net nila.
Okay,
Typing pa lang, ma'am. Typing.
Reveal na
Habang
ba
hinihintay
natin, ma'am?
natin,
Para
ano ba to?
Susunod na katanungan na, reveal na natin, hindi pa?
Okay, antayin natin, sir. Question number 3, Ma'am Malbe.
Question number 3.
Ay, sino ba? Sir Edwin pala.
So, sa question number 3, how can you ensure a good resistance test result? So, paano natin masasabi na yung resulta ay tama? Set A, test only components that are powered off o yung hindi siya naka-on. B, test resistance on components not in a circuit on naka-pull out. Then, letter C, watch your fingers when testing. And D, that is all of the above.
Sir, meron na ako nakikita.
Sa anong number yan, ma'am?
Number 2.
Number 2. Mayroon na rin ako.
two.
Parehas ba tayo nakita?
Meron
Ma'am
ba tayo
Marlene?
nakikita? O pare-pares na yung mga sagot nila ng number 2.
That is?
Janilyn Coach.
Yes, Coach. Siya ang nauna.
Yon ay letter D. Bakit siya letter D? Dahil sa kung unknown voltage, pinaka-safe yung 1,000 na gamitin. Yun na kasi ang pinaka-mataas na range na ginagamit natin sa voltmeter. Kasi in case na 750 yung voltahe na itetest natin, hindi pwede yung 500. Dapat mas mataas ang range kaysa sa voltahe na susukatin natin. Kaya letter D.
Okay, congratulations, Janelyn. Kay
from
Ismael
Nice
also. Kay Van Dam. Kay Van Dam, Norilyn. Magkakapara sa mga sagot na mga ito.
Yes, letter D
Lorly. And of course, pati si Norlyn.
Sa number 3, meron na ba? Meron na.
Okay, may number 3, meron na.
Sa number 3, ang tamang sagot dyan ay all of the above.
Okay.
So,
meaning,
si
Banding.
Isang artista, ma'am.
So, dapat naka-off ang component kapag mag-test tayo ng resistance. Kasi pag naka-on yan, voltahe na ang sinusukat natin, masisira yung ating instrumento. Dapat din na naka-pull out siya upang sa ganun walang ibang resistance ng ibang component ang matetest. And letter C, hindi kasi advisable na hawakan natin yung tip ng test prod, yung dalawang tip nito. Pwede yung isa lang. Kasi yung resistance din ng ating body ay pwedeng masukat. Kaya ang tamang sagot ay letter D. Okay.
Wow, congratulations. Ang cute naman nung pag-congratulate ni sir.
Anime. Okay.
Yes. So, meron hinanda dito si Sir Edwin na picture. Kahit hindi nyo kami nakikita dyan, mukha ko yan. So, dahil lagi kong sinasabi yung aking nararamdaman, sa tingin nyo kaya anong nararamdaman ko dyan sa aking picture?
Cute-cute naman.
Sir Edwin, ano bang nararamdaman ni Malbe dyan?
Sa tingin ko, ma'am, nagagalit ka dahil doon sa pinapanood mo, doon sa kontrabida.
Okay, sa akin naman, naiinis ka, Ma'am Malbe, kasi ayaw mag-power on yung TV mo. Tama ba ako?
Ay nako, sa akin naiinis din yan. Kasi biglang namatay yung TV habang pinapanood niya yung paborito niyang eyepiece o yung anime. At ayaw nang mag-on yung kanyang television. Tama ba, Ma'am Malve?
Tama kayo, Ma'am Dandit, Ma'am Marilyn, and Sir Edwin. So, kung bibigyan ko kayo ng score dyan sa aking picture na may siopaw.
Ang ganda-ganda
so, sa'yo, Ma'am Marilyn, at 10 points.
Wow.
Dahil yun
Thank
talaga
you.
ang tunay na nangyari. So, kay Ma'am Dandit naman, bibigyan kita dyan, Ma'am, ng 9 points
Ay,
kasi
bawas
medyo
isa.
kulang. At kay Sir Edwin naman, siguro 7. Dahil may punto rin naman, nakakabwisit talaga yung mga kontrabida. So sa mga sitwasyon na yan, lalo na sa ating mga estudyante, no?
Kung kayo ay sasagot, sa tingin nyo, kung yun ang sa tingin nyo ay tama, ilagay nyo lang sa ating comment section or i-text kasi wala naman tayong maling sagot. Lahat ay may punto.
So doon sa, nung nangyari yun ma'am, at ayaw pa ding mag-power on, so ano yung ginawa mo?
Sir, tinanggal ko yung pagkakasaksak sa outlet, tapos sinaksak ko ulit, pero ayaw pa rin. So nalungkot ako.
Relate ako dyan, ma'am. Naku, ganyan din kami noon eh. Alam mo, nung nangyari sa akin yan noon, ang ginawa ko, sinampal ko. Ay, pinagpag ko talaga. Pinagpag ko yung ano niya. Para bang yung ano na nabilaukan, pinagpag ko yung likod niya.
Likod. Para lumabas.
Pinampag, oo. Puro kasi langgam yung nagpapakita eh.
May langgam sa loob. Kung sa akin naman, tatawag naman ako ng skilled or experienced electronic technician to do the job kasi hindi ko alam kung anong gagawin ko.
Kalmado talaga si Ma'am Dandit. Tayo, Ma'am, nabubwisit, no? Kalmado siya.
Kung susumayin natin yung masagot ninyo, lahat ay tama. Pwedeng nagkaroon ng loose connection, pwedeng natanggal yung pagkakasaksak nito, o pwede na may konting depekto na pyesa doon sa loob. Pag hindi natin naagapan, pwedeng magiging mas malala pa ang sakit ng ating unit. Doon sa sagot ni Ma'am Dandit, yun talaga ang pinakamaganda. Kung hindi natin alam ang mag-test ng mga ito, tatawag tayo ng skilled electronic technician. Pero dahil sa Donya, itong EPAS na ito ang isa sa mga ino-offer natin. Tungkol ito sa kung paano natin kumpunin ang mga appliances at kahit na yung mga gadgets. Sa electronics kasi, mahirap yung tinatawag nating trial and error. Baka mas lalong lalala at lalaki pa ang babayaran ng isang customer. Magandang pagkakitaan itong tinatawag nating electronics na ito. Konting hinang,
tama ka
malaki
dyan,
na ang pwede kang maningil ng pwedeng pinakamababa dyan, 50, 100 o kaya ano pa man. Alam nyo ba na sa Turkana South, doon sa Kenya, may isang tao na 42 years old, siya si Ruben Carrio. Now, disabled ito, yung kanyang disability ay hindi siya nakakakita. Mantakin ninyo, hindi nakakita pero isang electronic technician. Nag-umpisa siyang magkumpuni ng mga electronic appliances na ito doon sa kanilang bahay, then later on ay nagkaroon siya ng sarili ng shop. Bali 12 years na siya na nagkukumpuni ng mga electronic appliances and gadgets. So, naniniwala siya na yung kanyang visual disability ay magbibigay ng inspirasyon sa bawat isa. Kahit sa kawayan, may nakita ko, walang putol yung isang kamay. Kahit dito, may naging estudyante ako noon na pilay pero electronic technician siya.
Okay, so ang haba nung ni sir, no? Paliwanag niya. So dapat na na tayo doon, na motivate na tayo doon. So I think we are now ready to start our topic for our quarter 3, shift 1, week 4, titled Testing Electronic Components. May I present again the objectives of our lesson today? First, define tests as used in assembling and troubleshooting electronic devices. Second, enumerate the steps in testing individual electronic components. Third, explain the procedure on how to test electronic components and give the importance of testing components. So, exciting to mga anak.
Okay, so let's see if our listeners and viewers are attentive. Using the hashtag Usapang TLE, comment your grade and section and the title of our topic for today. Okay, mga anak nag-aantay kami. So, comment ninyo, ano ba yung title ng topic natin ngayong araw na to? For quarter 3, shift 1, week 4. Okay, sino kayo ang nakakaalam kung ano yung title ng topic? So, kanina nabanggit namin yan. Okay, so aantayin namin ha. Meron na ba? So, wala pa. So, while waiting for the answers of our learners, so let's start our topic by defining the test, low resistance, and high resistance. So, what is meant by test, Ma'am Malve?
Yes, ma'am. So, bago natin i-define yan, baka nagtataka ang ating mga estudyante, hindi nakikita yung kagwapuhan ni Sir Edwin at kagandahan natin. So, baka ipagpag nyo rin yung TV nyo dyan, kagaya nung remote na ginawa ko kanina.
TV talaga, di ba cellphone?
Ay, cellphone. Malay mo, ma'am, gumamit sila ng TV, no?
Nahagis nila yung
So,
cellphone.
nagkakaroon lang po tayo dito ng technical problem. Baka mamaya makikita nyo rin po kami. Huwag nyong ihagis ang inyong mga cellphone. So, balik tayo. Test is a sequence of operations intended to verify the correct operation or malfunctioning of a piece of equipment or system. It may also be defined as a method of judging whether an electronic component is good or defective. So I think this is very familiar to our students, especially yung ating mga grades 9 and 10 who are in different specialization. So, sa mga 7 at 8 din, makakarating din kayo dyan. So, yung ating mga 9 at 10 kasi, they are dealing with the different tools, materials, machines, equipment, sa cookery naman, ingredients, and others. So, kagaya sa amin sa beauty care, hello, my beauty care 9B. So, we are dealing with yun nga mga nabanggit natin, kagaya ng foot spa at foot spa machine and hand spa machine. So, tinetest din natin lahat yan bago gamitin. How about you, Ma'am Marilyn?
Yes, kung meron kayo dyan sa beauty care, ma'am, meron din kami sa dressmaking, of course. The students who are specializing dressmaking are also aware of the different tools and materials used. We have sewing machine, yun ang ating equipment, which has different parts. The students must be aware first not only on the function but also the condition of those parts of the whole machine before using it. So testing is very important. So hindi ka agad-agad bananahin, hindi mo isasalang ka agad yung tatahiin mo. You have also to test the stitches. Maluluwang ba, maluwag ba, yung mga ano. So meron yun, makikita doon during the testing. So wag mong isalang ka agad yung tatahiin mo kung hindi mo pa na-test yung machine. Okay? Ma'am Dit?
Yes, that's right, Ma'am Marilyn. So even if in the different specializations such as EIM, so meron tayong FDAS or the fire detectors and alarm system, and CCTV or the closed circuit television. Sa ICT naman, composed of electronic parts, and in automotive, we have the computer box. So testing is very important before assembling any products or when troubleshooting or repairing. In our exploratory course, which is the Consumer Electronic Servicing, we are dealing with appliances and their components. Due to the constant use, these parts may develop defects o kahit bago, we need to test them dahil kung minsan may mga sira or tinatawag natin itong factory defect. Hindi natin maiiwasan yan. So, nandyan yung slide. Nakita nyo, yan yung mga components. Okay.
Bagong-bago ma'am, pero hindi ibig sabihin na good lahat.
Yes, kaya kailangan i-test. So, tulad ng nakikita natin, parang bago yung mga spare parts, pero hindi ibig sabihin yon. Sabi nga ni Sir Edwin, lahat ay gumagana. Sabi nga, don't judge a book by its cover kasi maganda na tignan. Akala mo okay lahat, pero hindi. Kaya kailangan i-test. So before we proceed on how to test individual components, which is also known as spare parts, let's have our trivia. Ano ba yung trivia natin?
Sa trivia natin, kung tatanungin ko kayo, ang electronics o mga gadgets natin, mga appliances, ay pwede natin sabihin na sa araw-araw na pamumuhay natin ay kasama na natin yan. Mahirap ngayon na lalabas ka, walang cellphone, di ba?
Yes,
sa pagtuturo natin, mahirap na magturo na walang laptop. So, napakahalaga itong tinatawag nating mga electronic appliances o kaya mga products natin. Actually, nag-umpisa ito noong taong 1897 noong si John Ambrose Fleming ay dinevelop itong vacuum tube. Kaya marami tayong napapakinggan kaya sa mga appliances natin noon, meron tayong tinatawag na mga CRT television dahil dyan applicable pa rin hanggang sa ngayon yung tinatawag nating vacuum tube. Yan ang isang halimbawa nito. Pag sinilip natin yung mga CRT type na TV, may makikita tayong nagbabago doon. Ano? Hanggang sa, ang vacuum tube natin, diode pa lang noon, 2 paa, and then triode, 3, tetrode, 4, and then pentode. Tumagal ito hanggang noong World War II. Ano? Naging dominante ito hanggang sa World War II. Sana wala ng World War III dahil sa nangyayari sa Ukraine and Russia. Ano? Then, noong 1948, itong tatlong scientists ay nag-develop naman ng isang transistor na kung saan ay ni-replace niya itong vacuum tube. Masyado kasing malaki itong tinatawag nating vacuum tube. Ang tatlong scientists na ito ay Walter Brattain, John Bardeen, and William Shockley. And noong 1961, sina Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce ay inimbento naman yung IC na yan. IC o Integrated Circuit. Kung sinabi natin integrated, sama-sama yung ilang mga piyesa dito. Kaya kung papansinin natin, palit ng palit ang mga appliances natin, ngunit may mga iba na kung saan ay palaki ng palaki, ngunit panipis ng panipis. So, yan yung pagka-develop ng ating mga spare parts. So, kung papansinin natin, maliliit na, meron tayong mga SMD o mga tinatawag nating surface mount device, kaya manipis yung mga appliances na natin ngayon. Okay. And then, so yan ang unang pinagkagamitan noon. No, yung phonograph, then makikita natin dito yung radyo phono na abutan natin yan, di ba?
Yes, yan yung uso pa lang na ginagamit, sir.
Mga plaka. Wala pa
sa mga kasalan, ganyan ang ginagamit nun, sir.
Wala pa noong mga VCD, walang DVD, walang USB and others. Sa television naman, pag i-compare natin, malalaki ang TV noon, ngunit maliit ang screen. Malaki dahil sa kaha. Pero ngayon, malalaki din, ngunit sa screen ay malaki, manipis naman yung kanyang, yung width nito.
Yes, sir.
Flat screen, ngayon, wala nang puwet.
Wala nang
Pero yung CRT na sinasabi kasi ni sir, yung cathode ray tube na TV, yun yung mahaba. Kung may nakikita pa kaya yung mga bata ngayon na ganyan? Parang nabuhay na sila ng flat screen.
Yung mga nauna natin mga TV sa school.
Yan yung mga nakakabinet.
Pero yung mga papasok na ngayon, hindi na nila makikita yung mga CRT TV natin. Puro flat screen na.
And noong unang panahon, paano nila tinetest ang mga piyesa na ito? Unang-una, ang ginagawa nila ay yung tinatawag nating burn test. Ano itong burn test na ito? Hindi siya sinusunog, kundi kung ilan yung kanyang supply voltage, halimbawa so yun yung cellphone natin, di ba?
Yung mga cellphone noon.
Mga cellphone natin noon, may antenna pa. Binaburn in nila, nang sa ganun ay sinusupplyan nila kung ilan yung voltaheng kailangan. Halimbawa sana 12 volts, so 12 volts yung sinusupply. Tumatagal yan ng 48 hours o kaya ay 2 days hanggang 168 hours o kaya ay mahigit 5 oras. And then ang unang multitester natin ay dinevelop ni Donald McAdee noong 1920. Na dahil sa ang mga tester natin noon, dinevelop ni McAdee dahil sa ang mga tester natin noon ay hiwa-hiwalay.
Yes, sir.
Iba yung tinatawag nating voltmeter, hiwalay yan. Hiwalay din ang ating ammeter at
hiwalay din ang
iba din yung ating ohmmeter.
Yes.
Ang ginawa, pinag-isam ni Donald McAdee.
Kaya
nagkaroon tayo ng multi. Kaya tinawag nating multi o kaya multi, ibig sabihin, yung tatlo naging isa na lang. 3 in 1 parang sa kape. Kaya nag-develop ito hanggang sa meron na tayong mga pinaka-latest na ginagamit natin ngayon, analog, then we have yung latest nga ay yung tinatawag nating analog. Digital. Mas madaling gamitin. Okay, ma'am.
In testing these components, we use the ohmmeter instrument. For some, the result in each test may be low resistance or high resistance, while other parts are not. Ma'am Marilyn, what is the difference between low resistance and high resistance?
Parang high and low lang yan. Low resistance is, in the electronic testing industry, refers to any resistance values below 1 ohm, while high resistance is a resistance higher than 1 kilo ohm. to easily determine low and high resistances in testing electronic components like diode and transistor. Use the formula ranges R times 1 or R times 10, or whereas R means the resistance times 1 or times 10. If the pointer moves, the resistance is low. And if the pointer does not move, the resistance is high. Or we can call it as infinite reading. Napakadali lang ito. Pag gumalaw, low. Pag hindi gumalaw, high. Parang pag may nakasalubong tayo, babatiin natin ng high, sasagot siya na, dapat siya ng low or hello or vice versa.
Happy
Diba?
yun,
Hi.
Low.
Pag hindi siya nag-react, meaning
high din siya, ma'am.
Low resistance,
Yes,
ano ba yan?
siya.
High resistance.
Pero pag nag-react, low.
Pareho kayong high.
Kaya hindi ka
Naka-high siya,
pinansin.
hindi ka niya narinig.
Okay, so let's start for diode. Sa diode na tayo. So step number 1, keep the multimeter selector switch in low resistance value. Why? Bakit? Sa low resistance value. We use the low resistance range because in this mode, the multimeter is capable to supply a current of approximately 2 milliampere between the test leads from the battery inside the tester. So yan, pinakita ni sir. Remember also not to touch the tip of the two probes by the finger when measuring resistance. This is because the diodes only conduct in one direction. Leakage path through fingers can alter readings in some cases. And for step number 2, ano yun, Sir Edwin?
So sa step number 2 natin, sa ito, makikita natin yung kadahilanan ng sinabi ni Ma'am Dandit na huwag hawakan yung dalawang dulo ng test prod. So nakikita natin dyan, hindi gumagalaw yung pointer. Pero once na hinawakan natin yung dalawang dulo ng test prod, ang pointer ay gagalaw. Ibig sabihin na may measure din yung resistance ng ating katawan. May dadagdag doon sa mini-measure natin. Okay. So sa step number 2, meron tayong dalawang test na dapat gawin dyan. Isa ay forward bias at yung isa naman ay yung tinatawag nating reverse bias. So paano itong forward at reverse bias na ito? Sa forward bias, positive nakakonekta sa positive at yung negative nakakonekta sa negative. Saan manggagaling yung dalawang positive na yon? Isa ay galing sa tester natin at isa doon sa diode na tinatawag nating anode. So, ang positive ng diode natin ay anode. At yung dalawang negative naman, that is galing doon sa tester at saka doon sa element ng diode na cathode. So, cathode is negative. So, reverse natin, yan ang lalabas. Ano? Okay. So, dapat ang masasabi natin ng isang diode ay good kung ang isang test ay low at yung isa naman ay high. Sabi ni Ma'am Marilyn kanina, pag gumalaw, that is low. Kaya gumalaw dyan, then ito, hindi siya gumalaw nung binaliktad. So, it is good.
Napansin kaya nila, sir? Yung pointer doon ang sinasabi natin, mga anak, yung pointer.
Ayan,
No?
yung pointer, gumagalaw siya.
Yung black part doon, kung napapansin ninyo, gumagalaw.
Pointer o kahit natawag din nating needle, doon sa may mirror ng tester natin. Okay, Ma'am Malbe.
Ma'am Malbe?
Yan ay kung paano mag-test ng diode. What about transistor? How do we test transistor? Is it still high and low? So, malalaman natin yan. There are steps to follow in testing a transistor and you need to consider its base collector and emitter leads or elements. So how can you identify the base, collector, and emitter leads of a transistor, Ma'am Marlene?
Okay, for step number 1, determine which leads or elements are the base, emitter, and collector. In plastic casing, one side of the transistor is flat, which the front side and the pins are arranged serially. To identify the pins, keep the front flat side facing you and count the pins as 1, 2, and 3. In most NPN transistor, or what we call the negative, positive, negative transistor, it will be 1 collector, 2 base, and the 3 is the emitter. Thus, it is called CBE. No? Hindi yun yung, they may be labeled on some transistors. So, some lang, may label yon. Mahirap kasi yung walang label, Ma'am Malve.
Yes, ma'am.
Or you may be able to determine which lead or element is the base by studying the circuit diagrams. So, nandyan tayo sa may slide. Makikita natin dyan.
Okay, ma'am. No. So, pag hinawakan natin ang transistor, kinakailangan na yung kanyang pins ay nasa taas. Ano? Hindi yung pababa. Naka-face sa atin yung flat, ngunit dapat ay nakataas yung mga pins. So, mapapansin natin yung sinabi ni Ma'am Lynn kanina na CBE. Pero hindi lahat. No? Kung minsan din ay pwedeng magkabaliktad ang mga, yan, depende. Ano? Kaya halimbawa, nasira yan, then hindi ibig sabihin na pagbibili ka at bibigyan ka ng ibang transistor, pwede basta't parehas yung gamit. Kung halimbawa, pang power amp o kaya preamp, okay lang. Ngunit hindi ibig sabihin na parehas yung location ng kanyang mga elements. Hindi CBE, kundi maaaring BCE o kaya yung iba pa. Ano, Ma'am Dandit?
Yes, sir. So, remind ko lang ha, kapag iti-test natin or titignan natin yung mga parts, component parts, dapat nakaalis siya doon sa mismong kinalalagyan niya, sir. And then for step number 2, connect the black test probe to the base of the transistor. And for number 3, touch the red test probe to the emitter. Then read the display on the tester and note whether the resistance is high or low. Ayan, so nakikita natin dyan sa screen. And then, kapag gumalaw siya, ibig sabihin low resistance. Then, move the red probe from the emitter to the collector. Yan yung step number 4 natin. Then, the display should give the same reading as when you touch the probe to the emitter. Gumalaw ulit base sa slide na nakikita natin dyan sa ating screen. Ayan. So, Ma'am Malve, for step number 5.
Yes, so ituloy na natin to. Madami-dami pa. So, step 5. Remove both probes from transistor. Connect the red probe to the base and black test probe to the emitter. So, ayan, nakikita natin. And for number 6, from emitter, touch the black probe to the collector. So, compare the reading on the tester display to the readings you got previously. Dun sa sinabi ni Ma'am Dandit kanina. Sa resulta ng test 5 at 6, parehas na high.
Okay. So, ibig sabihin, ma'am, kung alam natin kung nasaan yung base collector and emitter, 4 na test lang ang dapat nating gawin. Na 2 forward at 2 reverse. So, dito, mapapansin natin na kung ang magiging resulta niyan ay, ito yung naging resulta. Ano? Yung test 1 and 2, base doon sa sinabi ni Ma'am Dandit at doon sa screen na nakita natin, 2 low. At doon sa sinabi naman ni Ma'am Malve, 2 high. Ibig sabihin niyan, na kapag ang resulta ay 2 low, doon sa 4 ay 2 low at 2 high, ang transistor ay good. Ngunit, kung ang resulta dun sa 4 ay 3 low at 1 high or 4 na low at walang high, ibig sabihin niyan ay shorted. So, mas marami sa 2 na low, shorted. Mas marami sa 2 na high, it is open. So, katulad niyan, 3 high, o kaya ay lahat ng 4 na test natin ay high, ibig sabihin, siya ay open. Okay. Ma'am Lynn.
Okay. Bago po natin ituloy, meron kasi akong, di ba meron tayong question kanina, ma'am, about the title.
Meron na bang sumagot?
So, meron nang sumagot. Siguro na traffic yung kanyang na si Van Dam James Vizcara. No? The topic is testing electronic components. Tama pa, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
congratulations,
congratulations.
Bandang. Pangalawa na yata ni Bandang.
Yes,
pangalawa na
Ilis
niya.
talaga si Bandang.
Ilis talaga yan, ma'am.
Oo,
Kala ko
Bandang na.
nakalimutan na nila. Yung
Oo,
pala,
yan.
na-traffic lang.
Nagising din. So, let's proceed to our next component to be tested, which is the capacitor. Capacitors are voltage storage devices used in electronic circuits, such as those found in heating and air conditioning fan motors and compressors. To find out the condition of the capacitor, there are 4 steps to follow. Step 1, disconnect the capacitor from its circuit. Why is it needed to disconnect the capacitor from the circuit, Ma'am Dandit?
Ma'am Marilyn, it is very important to disconnect capacitor from its circuit, lalo na yung may mataas na capacitance value and voltage rating, because capacitors can hold the charge even if the power supply is disconnected. So if the capacitor is not discharged properly and if you accidentally touch the leads of the capacitor, the voltage stored in the capacitor passes through the body and may cause an electric shock. Ayan.
Ang pangit naman mangyayari sa iyo kapag ganyan.
Yes.
Electric shock, yun yung sudden na pagdaloy ng kuryente sa ating katawan.
Sir, may electrocution din ba yan, sir?
Nag-store, ang capacitor kasi natin mamaya nag-store ng nag-charge siya. Kaya kapag hindi natin iwasan, okay, yung mga may matataas na voltahe, may mataas na capacitance, yung voltage rating nito dyan ay 450 volts. Kaya niyang mag-charge ng 450 volts. Pag naipon yan at nahawakan natin, yung laman nito ay mapupunta sa ating katawan. So yun ang maging cause ng tinatawag nating electric shock. And then, pag nag-test tayo ng capacitor natin, pinakamagandang gawin ay iset natin sa ohm. Iset natin ito sa ohm. And then, i-connecta natin ito dun sa dun sa terminal ng capacitor. Is it may forward bias and reverse bias pa ba? Wala na. Wala na siyang forward at reverse bias. Pero pwede nating baliktarin upang sa ganun ay makita natin yung kung ang capacitor ba ay gagalaw o kaya ang pointer ba ay gagalaw o hindi. Now, paano natin ma-identify kung yan ay good? Okay, so makapapansin natin dito. Pag ang pointer, pag tinest natin at yung pointer ay gumalaw, papunta sa kanan at bumalik, mapapansin natin dyan sa arrow, dyan sa screen natin, nag-move siya, yung arrow in-indicate nito na papunta sa kanan, then bumalik. Ibig sabihin, siya ay good. Ngunit kung siya ay nag-move, bumalik, ngunit hindi nakarating doon sa original position, that is leaky. Now, pag siya naman ay hindi gumalaw, nangahulugan ng ating capacitor ay open. At kung yung pointer ay gumalaw at kung saan siya nakarating, doon na lang siya, ibig sabihin, siya ay shorted. Kumbaga sa buhay natin, di ba? Pag iniwan mo siya at binalikan mo, that is good. Pag iniwan mo siya, gusto mong balikan, ngunit hindi tinuloy, that is leaky. Kung kapit ko, ayaw mo siyang iwan, yan ay open. Ngunit kung ayaw ko na sa'yo, umalis ka na, wala nang lingon-lingon, it is shorted. Then, sa last na component natin, ma'am.
Yes, good ako, sir. Pero may kilala akong leaky. For step 2, set your tester to its resistance setting. This setting may be marked with the word ohm.
Okay, tuloy natin. We have the last component, which is the resistor. Actually, maraming spare parts ang bumubuo sa isang appliance. Pero baka maubusan tayo ng oras pag lahat ay i-discuss natin sa isang upuan lamang. So, step 1, rate the indicated value on the resistor body. Ayan sa may natin slide. Sir Edwin.
Okay. So base doon sa nakita natin, ang kulay nito ay brown, black, red, gold. Ang value ay 1,000 ohms plus minus 10%. Yun yung gold. Sa pag mag-assemble tayo, wala kang makikita doon sa tinatawag nating schematic diagram, parts list, o doon mismo sa PCB. PCB yung pinaghihinangan natin. Wala kang makikita doon na 1,000, 1 million, kundi pag umabot na ng 1,000, kino-convert into mas mataas na unit. That is kilo. Kung million, mega. So dito, 1,000 yan, magiging 1 kilo ohm. Basta 1,000 yung value na nito, i-divide natin ng 1,000. Halimbawa sana, 10,000 magiging 10 kilo ohms. Then, yung 1 kilo ohm dyan, tinatawag nating ohmic value at yung 10% ay tolerance. May plus minus yan. Na malalaman natin mamaya kung ano ang gamit nito. And then, kinakailangan na malaman natin yung tinatawag nating extracted value. Ano yung extracted value? Kung 10%, ilan yung magiging sagot natin, ilang porsyento doon sa 1,000, 10% ng 1,000 is equal to, so i-multiply natin. 1 kilo ohm, yun yung kanyang ohmic value, times 0.1. Saan galing yung 0.1? Yung 0.1 ay galing doon sa 10%. Now, so, convert natin, 10 divided by 100 is equal to 0.1. I-multiply, that is equal now to 0.1 kilo ohm. Ulitin ko, 1 kilo ohm, ohmic value, times 0.1, that is tolerance. Ang tawag natin dito ay extracted value. So huwag kalimutan, ohmic value and that of the extracted value. Ano naman yung gamit ng plus at minus dyan? Yun ay para sa maximum and minimum value. Sa maximum and minimum value, dito natin malalaman kung yung itetest nating resistor ay good o kaya ay hindi. So sa maximum value, tulad ng sinabi ko kanina, ohmic value plus. Gamitin natin yung plus. So 1 kilo ohm plus 0.1 is equal to 1.1 kilo ohm. Sa minimum value, ito ay 1 kilo ohm minus naman ngayon. 1 kilo ohm minus 0.1 kilo ohm is equal to 0.9 kilo ohms. Halimbawa, mineasure natin yan, tinest natin yung 1 kilo ohm kanina, ang naging reading natin ay, measured value, ibig sabihin, gamit ng tester. It is equal to 0.95 kilo ohms. So, mula dun sa, gamitin natin basehan yung maximum and minimum value. Kapag pasok ang measured value, ibig sabihin, ang ating resistor ay good. Good ba siya? Yes. Yes, kasi measured value is 0.95 kilo ohms, samantalang ang maximum natin ay 1.1, ang minimum is 0.9 kilo ohms. So, it is good. Yes, Mama Dandit.
Okay, so parang grade yan ng bata na dapat nasa pagitan lang ng 75 to 100 upang pumasa. O kung gusto nilang makareceive ng academic award, dapat ang grade nila ay nasa pagitan ng 90 to 94 with honors, 95 to 97 with high honors, and 98 to 100 with highest honors. Sa college naman, yung cum laude, magna cum laude, and summa cum laude. Ma'am Malbe?
Okay. So, yun kung paano natin i-measure ang tinatawag nating resistor. So, ulitin ko kunin ang kanyang value, then kunin yung tinatawag nating extracted value, multiply ang ohmic value doon sa kung ilang percent. Kanina, it is 10%, kaya 1 kilo ohm times 0.1. And then, pag-addin yung tinatawag nating ohmic value at yung extracted value para sa maximum. And then, minus naman natin ito para dun sa minimum. Kung ang na-measure natin ay nasa pagitan ng minimum and maximum, it is good. Kung above maximum, bad. Or below maximum ay bad. So, yun yung mga diniscuss natin ng mga components, kung paano natin sila i-identify, siya ba ay good o kaya ay bad. Pwede natin i-apply itong napag-aralan natin ngayon, ma'am. Meron tayong isang product dito. na tinatawag nating stable multivibrator, hindi makikita ng ating mga estudyante dahil
Hindi gumagana ang mga
hindi
camera
gumagana
natin,
yung mga
sir.
camera natin. Ano? So, meron tayong product dyan. Bawat isa kayo, ma'am. 3 kayo.
Paano natin
Ano,
may
i-test?
pakita, sir? Walang camera.
Walang,
Hindi gumagana yung mga camera natin.
okay, so, habang hinihintay natin yung test ni na Ma'am Malbe, Ma'am Marilyn at Ma'am Dandit, para sa inyo, mga anak, pwede nyong sagutan ito na tungkol sa kung paano natin so yan.
Okay, so hindi natin may papakita, sir. Okay, so hindi namin may papakita yung
So,
demonstration.
hindi may papakita yung demo natin.
Pero nandito siya sa... wala na, sir.
Pero actually, napakita sa mga pictures
dun sa mga
kanina
dinestas
yung
natin
display, di ba,
kanina, sir.
Yes, mama.
Nagkaroon kasi tayo dito ngayon ng technical problem kaya hindi nyo rin kami makita at yung ipapakita sana namin sa inyong demonstration ngayon.
Okay. Nasa, parang medyo balikan lang natin doon. Na kasi diode, ang itetest dyan ay diode, transistor, and resistor. Okay. So sa diode natin, good kung siya ay, ang resulta ay isang low at isang high. Kung dalawang low, shorted. Kung dalawang high, it is open. Sa transistor, ilang test?
4, sir.
4, ma'am. Dapat, kung siya ay good,
2 low at 2 high.
okay, 2 low at 2 high. Pag hindi ganun ang lalabas, ibig sabihin, defective na ang ating transistor. Now, so, para sa mga bata, mas madali kung ang gagamitin nating pag-test ng resistor ay yung tinatawag nating digital. Hindi ka na mag-a-adjust. Nakatulad niyan. Ano? Yung value ng resistor dyan is equal to naka-times 10 kasi yan. Now, 1K. So, 1K, pag tinest mo siya, lumabas na 9.7. Siya pa rin ay good. So, para sa mga bata, habang hinihintay natin, pakisagot ito. Hindi na makakanam yung kan.
Doon na tayo sa answer, sa question na
Q&A na.
Para bago yung Q&A natin, pasagot pa natin o hindi na? Q&A na.
Isesend na lang sa kanilang GC yung ating
Yes,
question and answer. Yes, so meron tayong 3 tanong dyan.
Pag-usapan din natin yan sa klase natin later on. Lalong sa mga sa Sabado. Lalong sa mga major ng EPAS. Okay, so para sa ating question and answer.
Okay, for number 1. So ayan, ready na sila. Which of the following is not a defect of the capacitor? A, good. B, leaky. C, open. D, shorted. Okay, pabilisan mga
Okay,
anak.
for number 2, no, i-ano nyo na lang to sa ating sa GC. How to discharge capacitors properly? A, by connecting a jumper wire across their 2 conducting terminals. B, by holding the 2 terminals of the capacitor. C, by removing the dielectric between the 2 metal plates. And D, by soaking the capacitor in hot water.
And para sa ating question number 3, why is it important to test electronic components before assembling any electronic product? Is it A, to improve the quality of sound? B, to increase the sound output of the unit? C, to maintain the unit in good condition? Or D, to provide early detection of any error or trouble?
Yes, and to sum up our topic for today, we discussed the steps on how to test individual electronic spare parts to determine its condition, either good or bad. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, wag pakalimutan yung ating reflections. Testing electronic components is an important, so when assembling or repairing electronic device, the reliability of a product is often highly dependent on whether the electronic components were properly tested. Testing out a component provides early detection of any error or trouble and thoroughly evaluates the unit's performance to determine if it meets specification compliance. So, yun ang ating
Okay.
reflection.
Now, sa...
Okay, so,
let's
never stop learning because life never stops teaching. Goodbye.
Ayan, magre-reset yan.
TLE, Technology and Livelihood Education. TLE, Learning Area, Automotive Servicing, Beauty Care, Electronics Product Assembly and Servicing, Cookery, Electrical Installation and Maintenance, Dressmaking, Computer System Servicing, mga leksyong pangkabuhayan, edukasyong, teknolohikal, mapapakinggan. Dito lang yan sa 106.3 Dance Radio. TLE, Learn and Earn. Ito ang 106.3 Dance Radio. Dance Radio.
Prepare yourself.
Ang silid-aralan sa radyo, hatid namin ay makabagong paraan ng pagtuturo at kaalaman. Mapaumaga, tanghali o hapon man yan. Ang istasyong magbibigay impormasyon kahit saan man.
For something big. Alright, here we go.
106.3 Dance Radio. Doña Aurora National High School, Santa Rita, Aurora, Isabela.
This
106.3 DWDR FM.